We are on board MV Classic, offloading and loading cargo here at the port of Mombasa. And remember, the whole of this week we have been focusing on the blue economy industry and what the Kenyan government is doing to exploit resources that lies therein. Joining us on Inside Government tonight is the PS, Department of Shipping and Maritime Affairs, Nancy Karigithu. She's joining us here to help us understand what the government is doing in order to grow this industry. Thank you so very much for joining us here on board MV Inside Government.
Thank you.
Very good.
Welcome to our world.
Asante sana. It's quite an exciting area to be in, eh?
Absolutely.
Very well. Tell me this. I mean, there has been a lot of, efforts being put to ensure that, we sustainably exploit, the resources that lies within our blue economy sphere. What are we doing currently?
We're doing a lot of things, and this is one of them. We're inside the sphere of maritime transport, all the shipping industry. As you are aware, 92% of our international trade is carried on ships. Kenya currently doesn't own shipping, doesn't own any ships, but the government is keen and has decided to revive the shipping industry by restructuring the Kenya National Shipping Line and building the capacity that is necessary to grow or to create our own homegrown shipping sector. The reason, all the aim is to tap into the money that comes or that is spent in the shipping sector, bringing our imports, taking out our exports. It's an industry that lies in around the sum of 300 billion Kenya shillings. If we are able to tap into even 10% of that, we will be bringing in no less than 30 billion shillings into the economy. That's one of the aims that we are targeting as government. Then the other thing is building the capacity, the necessary capacity in terms of human resources to develop, one, our own blue economy sphere, blue economy industry, to participate in what is a global industry in a manner that it will be sustainable, but also using that for export of labor. So those are the two things that we are targeting. You're aware that in November last year, 2018, His Excellency the President signed an executive order setting up the Maritime Academy out of what was previously Bandari College, in order to be able to create a maritime center of excellence in maritime training, to be able to churn out the labor at very high level that is necessary to both develop our own sector, but also be able to tap into foreign exchange in terms of employment in the international foreign-going fleet, because as yet we don't have ships ourselves. But most important is to be able to give the trainee seafarers, the trainee young men and women who are coming into this sector in terms of careers, marine engineers, marine pilots, naval architects, to be able to give them the last mile into competency certification, because you realize that this is an area that is very highly regulated by the international maritime community, also known as the IMO, International Maritime Organization.
Very good.
For very good reason in terms of safety assurances.
I mean, it's such a big word here that we keep on, throwing around, blue economy. Do we really understand what we are talking about when we talk about the blue economy?
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Blue economy is basically the exploitation, economic exploitation of what is a very rich area, that is the blue world, water-based resources. Someone once said that the earth as we know it is 71% covered with water. 71%. So the land-based economy are actually based on small specks of land in what is actually ocean space. But we are told now, or from what we understand, is that this is the last unexplored economic frontier. And as a coastal state, as a port state, it behoves us to do what is necessary, to put the measures that are necessary to be able to gain economic benefits from being coastal state. So, yes, we understand because that's why government is putting a lot of measures, a lot of policies in positioning Kenya to be able to draw economic benefit. What does that mean? If you look at MTP3 of Vision 2030, the blue economy is now one of the sectors under the economic pillar that are expected to produce or to drive 10% sustained economic growth of the national economy. Now, we won't be able to do that unless we take seriously the measures that are, as a country, we exploit the wealth that is there and also position our young people to be able to take advantage of employment and job opportunities. Let me expound on that. Now, we won't exploit the sector unless we have the high-level training skills that are needed. We have an advantage as a country. We've got a wealth of youth, young people who are well positioned to be in this sector. Why? We learn in English. English is the maritime language. And that gives us a very big edge in being able to exploit or take advantage of the jobs in the sector, because ships like this one will always need people to work and to drive the shipping industry, maritime transport. That's one. We have a youth bulge because you look, a ship owner or the shipping industry is looking at sustainable supply of labor. You don't want to take 50 and then you come back and they are cut off because of age. So we've got in plenty young people whose language of instruction in education is English and therefore well suited. Kenyans are known to be able to travel easily, so they can fit in the kind of the work environment that is required, that is provided by the shipping sector. And other than that, the world is always looking, the ship owner, shipping is always looking for the next source of cheap labor. Cheap in the sense that reflecting the GDP of a country. The first world, we know the GDP is very high. So if you pay somebody, for example, $1,000 a month, it won't translate into wealth in the economy. But in Kenya, the kind of jobs that we are targeting and the amount of money in salary that they are paying will do a lot of good to the economy. The most important thing also is an area where there are quality, self-esteem, jobs that will give our youth self-esteem and make them get responsible very early. We're seeing Irene here. Irene
happens to be a captain, by the way, on MV Classic.
Aspiring captain. Irene Atieno, given the opportunity, if you're on a ship like this and you're working, and you're, because the way the labor is organized, you must have a minimum number of hours that the captain and the other staff must rest. So when a young person like this one is on watch, for example, and the captain and the engineers are asleep because they must get their minimum hours of rest, that's a huge responsibility. And it makes them mature at a very early age. Then the other advantage is that there is sustained good wages. You are on board the ship. You are not spending in terms of upkeep, bed, food, medical, and you don't have the opportunity to spend money on a whim, meaning therefore the period you are on board, your money is accumulating, and therefore you are able to invest in worthy economic ventures when you come back home. Then the way the labor is structured, you are on board for a specific length of time and then minimum holiday time. Let's say that you are on board for 9 months, then you get a mandatory holiday for 3 months. So you're able to come and undertake your economic investment activities when you come back on board. And of course, if you are reliable and your employer has confidence in you, which is easy for Kenyans, then you're able to keep repeating that cycle of employment. 9 months on board, 3 months holiday, and you're able to also undertake certification examinations that then are able to enable you develop structurally and get promotion.
Beauty. Tell us this. We know there's a plan by government, to create more employment, within the shipping and maritime industry. And we have seen, this partnership between Mediterranean Shipping Company and the government of Kenya, whereby they would want to train seafarers and other personnel. tell us about that training and how this is going to create employment for our young people.
Okay, it's part of restructuring Kenya National Shipping Line, which, as you are aware, was created in the 1980s, 87. And in 1997, because the model needed some improvement in terms of economic sustainability and operational efficiency, the company invited, through the government initiative, a strategic partner. That strategic partnership was created through a public open tendering system. And that's how MSC came on board and became a partner in Kenya National Shipping Line. Now, the new restructuring plans are centered around creating capacity for Kenya National Shipping Line to trade globally, but also creating employment opportunities for Kenyans, young Kenyans. And the way it's been structured is we've got Bandari College now being, Bandari Maritime Academy now being created as a center of maritime excellence. We've got two areas, critical areas of work, crewing on board ships. You're either in cargo side, and there are different kinds of cargo shipping. There is containers, there is liquid cargo, there is bulk trading, all that. And there is a specific line of training for that. You've got rating in support of a navigational watch, like what we are doing. We are on board the bridge, navigation bridge. Then you've got the marine engineering side of it, the people who maintain this ship to see what the status. Now, you can start from the bottom as a rating and climb up to be a chief marine engineer, or to become, if you are on the deck side, then you train from rating in support of a navigational watch to become a marine master mariner. Now, that one, that's what we are positioning Bandari Maritime Academy to train, meaning we've got some challenges. For example, the way the training, the status of the college is, we are only able to do 6 out of the 31 mandatory courses and certification processes. We are preparing to be able to do the whole hog of the safety certification trainings. In the meantime, Kenya is world-renowned as a hospitality center. Utalii College has done us proud because it's given us a reputation in Africa, and Utalii graduates have been able to work all over the globe and work very efficiently. So for us, we are targeting, because we have to create a brand. Nobody knows Kenyan seafarers. And therefore, using MSC, we are getting the platform to be able to create the product that is then going to be, not to create, to showcase, because we already are renowned in this area. During the 70s, Likoni and Kisauni, we know, were built by seafarers. We lost that along the way. So it's reawakening our seafaring tradition. Good. And what better way than to do it using the product that is ready. Those are the hospitality personnel. If they can work in cruise shipping and then create an international brand for us, then as we train the technical area, in the technical areas, using the universities like Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, using the Technical University of Mombasa and others, because we are encouraging other universities to come and train. By the time we've got enough numbers to send out in technical areas, then we'll have a full-blown employment opportunities.
Very well. If you're watching this program inside government, and of course we are on board, MV Classic, our focus this week has been the blue economy, and joining us tonight is the PS in charge of shipping and maritime affairs, Nancy Karigithu. And Nancy, you are enumerating, the various opportunities that lies, especially within the transport industry. And tell me this, underpayment of the staff, and of course lack of capacity has been a challenge, within this industry, in the maritime sector. How are we going to ensure that, the Kenyans who are going to work on these foreign vessels are, number one, well paid, and number two, they have job security, and they're also secure? Okay,
it always happens that when there are no structures in a sector, of course, there'll be those people who will want to exploit the maybe employment people, the personnel. What we are doing, what we've been doing as government is lay firm foundations to ensure that the international standards, as they are understood, as they are laid down, for example, in the ILO, because ILO and IMO working closely have set out conventions that must be implemented in member states. Kenya is a member state. The ILO convention, that is the Maritime Labour Convention of 2016, is one of the pillars that we are using, implementing in this country to ensure that maritime labor gets their due. And this week, in fact, on Friday, yesterday, we just concluded a workshop that brought together the Maritime Administration, that's the Kenya Maritime Authority, and the Ministry of Labour in setting a wages council for Kenya. That's very important for us. So we are working very closely with the Ministry of Labour in order to bring on board, bring on shore the requirements of in terms of wages for the maritime sector. As you know, the Ministry of Labour has that mandate. Then the other thing we're doing is creating awareness in terms of the seafarers to understand. So working very closely with the union so that their members are then able to stand firm and not be exploited. They know and they have the awareness, because maritime labor stands on 3 distinct pillars, and that's the requirement under International Labour Organization. You have to work together with the employer, who is the ship owner. Then you have to work together with the employee, who then is represented by the union, in this case our Seafarers Union of Kenya, and of course the government, which brings together the structures that are set in order to protect labor, the Ministry of Labour, the Ministry of Transport, who then through Kenya Maritime Authority sets the requirement. Then the other thing we are doing in order to create proper labor is working with the university, the Ministry of Education, TVET, the Ministry of Education itself, higher education. And in this regard, from the 27th to the 28th, we've created a partnership, international partnership through an organization called International Association of Maritime Universities. We're having a workshop. It's going to be in Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. They are actually mentoring our education institution to be able to set up the correct structures for maritime training, and also to set up in quality, in the kind of quality that is required. So yes, we've been an area where people have been exploited, but because of desperation, they take the jobs because there is nothing quality. And that's why the restructuring of Kenya National Shipping Line is giving us hope in terms of our youth, seeing that there is an exit, there is let's say a pipeline of employment, assured employment in quality numbers. You should see the children that have been recruited.
I'm coming back to the children, because I have managed to interact with them. They have some very fascinating stories to tell.
Thank you.
But tell me things. I mean, the target here is to create about 10,000 jobs in the not so distant future.
Yes.
How are we going to do these? And what will be the role of Kenya National Shipping Line?
Okay. Kenya National Shipping Line, of course, is going to be a global carrier of Kenyan goods, Kenyan exports, and Kenyan imports. So, of course, within this partnership, then, we will be able to get the last mile certification. That's what we are using. That's the role of Kenya National Shipping Line. And that's what national shipping lines do. We've seen it in Ethiopia. We've seen it in the Seychelles. Those are not countries that are not far away from here. We've seen it also in South Africa, because they are able to then make sure and mop up that the need to get the certification process going and in a sustainable manner. So there shouldn't be a Kenyan who is trained in this area, but who is not able to translate that training into a job. We shouldn't have that once Kenya National Shipping Line is alive and running. Right now, we've got children with marine qualifications. I can tell you, off my fingers, so many of those young people, marine engineering degree from Cyprus, marine engineering qualifications from Tanzania, marine engineering degrees or deck trainee from all over the world. But because they are Kenyans, they have to get the certificates of competency from KMA. But then they are not able to get it because they can't show the competency part, because qualifications in this area are both academic. You get your degree, that's okay, but then it's also competency based. Competency based, you can't move from the ground floor to the next level, level 1, unless you can show prescribed minimum time on board. We mentioned that from level 3, for example, in navigation, you need 18 months sea time. Where are we going to get it? Unless we have Kenya National Shipping Line alive and running in the shortest times possible, so we can rescue this generation of children who are doing tuk-tuk driving, who are doing hawking of second-hand clothes.
Yeah.
I've got one who is hawking thermos flasks around town.
I also met one who is a tuk-tuk driver.
Exactly. We need to rescue those children and give them hope for the future, because they've got papers that are required or that are in great demand outside Kenya.
You're bringing a very interesting topic here, and we know for sure that once people realize that there's a lot of potential within this industry, then we're likely to see young people enrolling for these courses en masse. How are we then going to ensure that, number one, our standards, the international standards are maintained, and number two, how are we going to ensure that once they graduate and once they leave school, they get employment? Because the most unfortunate thing is for you to go through the system and then you end up hawking clothes in the streets of Mombasa, or being a tuk-tuk driver.
Yeah, which is why it's been a big burden on me, because we started the training at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. We encouraged them. We did the curriculum together. The same with Technical University of Mombasa. The same with Coast Polytechnic. We've been working with these institutions to give children or young people a distinct, separate career path, which is required, which is in great demand globally. That's been our responsibility. Now, the reason we are creating the partnership between the universities and the International Association of Maritime Universities is so that our training also meets the standards that are required in the world. And this is an association that mentors maritime trainers, maritime capacity builders, to be able to do that. Then the other thing we need to realize, within the MOU, within the arrangement with Kenya National Shipping Line, and part of the reason or the reason that Bandari Maritime Academy is coming into being as a standalone training institution is because there'll be twinning opportunities with Kenya National Shipping Line, the shareholders. That's one of the guarantees, so that we can be able to churn out students, churn out graduates who are market ready within the shortest time possible. But in the meantime, we're working on sending the hospitality staff to the cruise industry, because then we get to showcase the product we have as Kenyans, the Kenyan youth, and also we get to create the numbers of, that's where the 10,000 will mostly come from. But that is only one source. Last week I was in Norway attending a global forum on shipping, and we had an opportunity to meet one of the biggest recruiting agencies from Norway, who's been supplying the Norwegian fleet. And that's also another potential source of employment. And we've taken that conversation at a very high level. So within the Kenya National Shipping Line, that's the ground level entry. But we should be able to tap into other areas of employment.
In every opportunity, you expect to see some people taking advantage. Then how are we going to put checks and balances, to ensure that unscrupulous people do not come into this sector and start, luring young people into jobs that do not exist in phony scams? Yes,
we've seen those ones. Yeah. I know some time ago we had grandiose promises of 50,000 cruise jobs. Yeah. You never miss those ones. But that's why we now have the Maritime Administration, which is a requirement of IMO, because the International Maritime Conventions and the ILO conventions around this labor, it's a very highly regulated area, and that's why the MLC, or the Maritime Labor Convention, was brought about to ensure that we put in place structures within government that will then enable us to keep track of the people we are sending out, make sure that we look after their welfare. If you look at the Merchant Shipping Act, one of the longest chapters in that act has to deal with training, certification, employment, and welfare of seafarers. So within Kenya Maritime Authority, we have the tools that are needed to ensure that unscrupulous employers do not take advantage of our young people. And also the measures we are putting in, like working with Ministry of Labor to put the necessary structures. Those are some of the measures and the tools that we are employing to make sure that we make this industry as safe as possible for our youth, that when they go out there, it is to safe, well-paying, and they are also protected. And that's why having partners who have international reputes to protect is important, because then you're getting at a level where then you're creating the right message that there will be people. Also, we have international networks, international frameworks. The labor unions, like SUK, are also affiliates of the International Transport Federation. International Transport Workers Federation. That is the ITF, that has been a very strong partner even in the efforts by KMA to bring up the Seafarers Union, because that's a very critical partner in this arrangement of labor exports. And ITF helps in training. For example, the crew workers, they're a very important partner. If we call them, they will come and train the Seafarers Union. They will also help us in setting minimum wage scales that then we are able to ensure that our workers are not exploited. Then the most important thing is port state control. We are part of global partnership that ensures that the ships that come into the port, actually KMA is supposed to board, inspect 25% of all the ships visiting the port of Mombasa in any given year. And part of that is to ensure that the workers on that ship, be they Kenyans, be they from other jurisdictions, are well paid, that their requirements or their minimum entitlements under international conventions are being given unto them, which means therefore, as part of that network, port state control arrangements, then it means that our Kenyan workers, when the ship is in another port, they are also enjoying the same kind of privilege.
Because we have to come to the end of our program tonight. Finally, tell us, at the end of the day, what do we seek to achieve as a country with all these grand plans? And we know that we have had so many grand plans, that do not sail through. So at the end of the day, what do we want to achieve, and how are we going to ensure that all the plans, that the government has put in place comes into fruition?
Okay, I think I don't want them to call them grand plans. I want to say that it's plans whose time has come. Yes. Being part of the International Maritime Organization from 1973, and now being able to take advantage of what is supposed to be done. We became members in 1973 of the IMO. We have obligations that we must implement as part of that international maritime community. It took us a bit of time to understand where we lay in that. And I want to appreciate that the time has come now. A strong maritime administration through the Kenya Maritime Authority, recognition by the global maritime community, because that's the reason we were able to host a global conference of such huge success as we did in November, meaning we are ready to take advantage and to reap the benefits of being a coastal state. And a coastal state in an area that is teeming with wealth. We've got the people. We should be able to create an economy, a national economy, where the maritime sector, where the blue economy is the biggest contributor in terms of economic development and wealth creation and jobs for our young people. I don't see any other area, any other sector that is able to do what the maritime sector is able to do, because you're able to absorb labor from the low skilled, the middle skilled, and to the highest skilled. And all of those are able to find employment, jobs, both internally and also in the international job market. Plus also, unless we build this capacity, then we will have problems actualizing some of the grant projects we have in, for example, the development of Lamu Port.
Yeah.
We are a compulsory pilotage port, which means a ship coming in has to be brought in by a highly skilled person, master mariner level. Then in terms of repairs, if a ship has a problem here, who will repair them? Chief engineers who will have been taken through. So we need to be able to create those skills in large numbers so that we can also sustain and anchor our own national development plans in the maritime sector.
Good. We have to wrap it up.
Wow.
Thank you so very much indeed for joining us right here on MV Classic. And of course, you have been, it's been an honor having you right here on MV Inside Government, and we look forward to this kind of engagement so that we ensure that we revive this industry.
Thank you very much. Let me say that it's been a privilege, an honor to be able to get this platform to speak to Kenyans and to tell them what government is doing for them and the opportunities that lie ahead. This is just one of the sub-sectors. There are so many. And it's teeming, as you've heard, with opportunities for our young people.
Good.
Thank you.
On board MV Classic, you have been watching Inside Government, and of course tonight we were talking to the PS, Department of Maritime and Shipping Affairs, Nancy Karigithu, enumerating to us some of the projects that the government is undertaking in the blue economy sphere to try and to drive economic growth and job creation. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you very much for your company. We do this again next Thursday, same time right here on KBC Channel 1. Until then, have a good night.